Now, the aircraft was taken apart piece by piece by the Chinese and returned to the country, the U.S., in boxes.
It really was. It took 3 years, but we did get it put together. It needed new tail and new wings, all new in gear inside. Obviously, we destroyed that, but they made a statement, and it's back up flying.
All right, that 26-year-old, you're just a couple of months short of your 27th birthday. What clicked or what developed in that 26-year-old sailor, flyer, pilot?
Honestly, not a lot changed. My beliefs didn't change. I'd always thought that was how I'd react if faced with it, and I did. What changed was life got real busy, and I used it as an opportunity to go out and I've spoken to over 400 schools around the country, a lot of schools in Nebraska, about serving, about the importance of service above self. And so I used that and helped the Navy. They asked me to do quite a bit of this, and I was more than willing. But I also went back flying. A lot of people thought I got out of the military. That's another thing right then, and that's not true. I was back up flying 3 weeks after. I was an instructor pilot, and then September 11th hit later that year. And so I was ready to transfer out of my squadron. But once September 11th hit, I knew who did it. I'm an expert in the Middle East. I've spent over almost 2 years in the Middle East during my time. And so I extended my tour, and the book came out. I came home and did a 4-day book signing around Nebraska, and I couldn't tell anybody, but, instead of doing a book tour, I went over to fly missions over Afghanistan and then pre-war Iraq. So 2001 was a busy year. That first mission, I'll never forget it, getting shot at, coming at about 2 a.m, coming into Afghanistan and being in this big, slow, low-flying airplane and having bullets flying up at you was pretty nerve-wracking. But at the same time, I didn't want the Chinese incident to be the only thing that I could look back on my military career and say where I really, truly contributed to this country.
You stayed in the Navy for 4 years after that,
I did.
The April Chinese incident.
I did. I stayed in and enjoyed it and was an instructor pilot, and I had fun and had my shoulder surgery done and had a couple other surgeries. I got hit by a drunk biker doing a fundraiser up at Sturgis for the Children's Craniofacial Association. He was going down the road, hit me head on, and tore his leg off and tore all the cartilage out of my ankle. So I was not real fit for flight status in the Navy anymore, so it was time to come back to Nebraska and come home.
Took an accident on the ground to ground you.
Yeah, that's the closest I come to dying, is some guy making a poor choice up at Sturgis.
9 years of active duty in the military. Why'd you leave?
That's what I just said. I was injured, and I was ready to get back home.
You were just ready.
Had a family and enjoyed it. Did 9 years, loved it, loved the experience. Wouldn't trade it for anything, even the bad parts, even the rough parts.
From where did you get the love of flying?
We had a neighbor. I was born outside of Mitchell, South Dakota, and we had a neighbor who put together an old J3 Piper Cub, a World War II surplus, in his barn. He was a sheep farmer, and he'd take me flying, and that's where I was hooked. My job was to scare the sheep out of the way in the pasture, and then we'd go take off, come back, buzz the field, land, and park it in the barn, and that was the way aviation was meant to be as far as I'm concerned.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was. It got me hooked at a young age.
Loomis was the town, wasn't it?
Loomis, yeah.
South Dakota? I think of Loomis,
There's
Nebraska.
an ethanol plant there now, so actually people know where it's at, but, there was maybe 25 people.
When I first read up on you, there's a Loomis just outside of Holdridge, my hometown, and I'm thinking, you're from Loomis? That can't be. And then I saw the South Dakota tag. Norfolk High grad, 92, attended UNL, Naval ROTC scholarship, graduated with statistics and actuarial science degree. Then you get into flight school with the Navy, and eventually assigned to the World Watchers Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 1.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
Well, that's where we were reconnaissance. There's only 2 of these squadrons in the world. Very, very high level intelligence gathering, trying to prevent bad things from happening to us, as well as help warfighters when they're going in to a hot area. I mean, they don't go in without something us or the equivalent up orbiting and making sure. And so we had a very diverse back end, with 24 people on board. It's the largest naval crew, obviously. And it's a lot of people doing a lot of special things, but, and it all kind of comes together and culminates right there on that aircraft. So it's a very important airplane, but there's only about 12 of them in the world.
Shane, I respect what you can't tell me.
Sure.
So I understand that. But in the world we live in today, and you've been out of the military for a while, but you've got a lot of knowledge still there, is the government doing everything that it can, in your opinion, right now? What kind of intelligence levels do we have around this world?
We've got great technical capabilities, but a lot of good intelligence comes from human intelligence, and that takes years and years to foster and get intertwined, and it really took a hit in the 90s. We really decimated the CIA and similar organizations for the human intelligence side, so it's going to take a long time. We're doing what we can, but we want to be safe, and we've been relatively safe. We had some bad incident over Christmas, but the thing I tell people is I'm all for safety and strength. But the second that we are completely safe means we've given up all our personal liberties, because that's the only way we'll truly, it's always going to be tougher for us because we do it right. We believe in personal freedoms and personal privacy. So you have to find that balance. And the second we're completely safe means we've given all that up, in my opinion.
About the time that we solve the underwear bombings, we're going to get somebody that can work it into hair gel.
Sure.
There's going to be somebody that thinks a way around it. So you have to
use, smart people, seeing somebody doing something suspicious, acting out. There's some common sense way to do business here, that if we can take a little political correctness and use some common sense into this world, we'll quit wasting a lot of time and money.
And the argument is that too much information is coming through. The issue is disseminating.
It's tough to disseminate, yeah. And there's so many intelligence organizations that, I think there's 16 of them.
Yeah.